We may live over 5,000 miles from Lincoln Financial Field, but what we lack in proximity, we make up for in film study. And each and every week, we'll be bringing you in-depth film breakdowns from across the pond and the Sooner State. Welcome to On the Shane Page. I am your host, Shane Haff. You can follow me on Twitter at Shane Haff NFL. And I'm joined by BGN's own film guru, Jonny Page. Give him a follow on Twitter at JohnnyPage9. Jonny, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. Yeah, we were talking off air about how it feels like the grind part of the season. There's always a moment every year when film guys go, this week feels long. The game was awesome. Really enjoyed the Rams game. Like always, we keep playing at rubbish times for me, so I was up at 5 a.m. But I actually had a really weird moment. I tweeted this, but like obviously when I watch, I have no idea what's going on. So I was about as happy as could possibly be at 7 a.m. I flick on my phone. It was your tweet I actually saw because I guess the Twitter algorithm puts Shane Haff up first, and I saw you mention Brandon Graham in needing to like be replaced or whatever, and I was like, sorry, what? And then 2 tweets later, and I'm suddenly, oh well, I managed to enjoy that victory for literally about 2 minutes. I think between 6:30 and 7 a.m. My time, I enjoyed that game, and then I basically was miserable the rest of the day, even though the Eagles won. So it's a bit of a weird one, a little bit of a bittersweet win. But yeah, there we go. How are you doing? Except for, as well, I think feeling the grind at this point in the year.
Yeah, that it was strange. They literally never mentioned it on the broadcast.
No.
I was only really aware. The cameras never showed it. I was only aware of it because I saw beat writers tweeting about it. I have a question though. When you watch these games, like, do you watch like the condensed version to get through it quickly? Do you watch the full broadcast? How do you wake up and watch a game at 5 in the morning?
Luckily, where the Eagles are good, we're pretty much always a primetime game. So is in primetime being the UK, meaning the one that's on what we have like Sky Sports or whatever. So I end up just recording it, like the whole broadcast, and just literally fast forwarding it. So like old school, like it's probably like a 3.5 hour show, and I watch it in about an hour and a half. If they're not on TV, then I will watch the broadcast, or to be honest, maybe condensed because it may not have enough time. But I think every single time this year, Eagles have played 4 or prime, or obviously every single Sunday night, Monday night is obviously prime time. So I'll just watch that back. So to be honest, most of the time, yeah, I watch it like the broadcast. So I do like listen to quite a lot of the commentary. There are certain stuff that I will rewind and listen to again. Certain drives that will be a little bit quicker. Sometimes I take too long on the first half and have to catch up because I'm staring at the clock thinking, oh no. I mean, overtime is the absolute worst thing in the world. Basically, overtime for me is I'm getting to work late. So it's always nice when the Eagles win quite early. But yeah, I don't listen to everything. So I just assumed I'd missed something. I mean, everyone was tweeting saying, actually, no, they just didn't mention it at all, the fact that he was out. My favorite bit of the whole thing, actually, not that any of it's good news, the only thing that I found funny was when Brandon Graham was talking in the locker room, and shout out Jimmy Kempski. He's like, no, you're not. When BG's like, I'm out all year, Kempski's like, thinks he's taking the piss, and then Kempski realized very quickly that he actually was out for the year, and he suddenly got very serious, like, oh, damn. So if he still listens, I know obviously he used to, with a good old BGM radio day. So shout out Jimmy Kempski for giving me the only bit of enjoyment from that clip was Kempski's reaction. But yeah, except for that, I think we'll just talk. Do you want to just talk Brandon Graham, or do you want to talk about him when we break down the film? Because I think he's one of your points, isn't he?
He is one of my points. Yeah, I don't care. We can do it now, or we can save it. Up to you.
Do you know what? You'll probably do the film side of it. So let's just do like the moral side of things, the how we're feeling side of things. So I started watching this sport in 2009, and I remember my first ever game. Funny enough, the Eagles beat the Rams. I think he was like 38-3. I'm frantically Googling it now. I think Hank Basket, Kevin Curtis, for those of you that are a little bit older, 38-3. 2008, actually, 2008. I didn't really understand what the hell was going on for a couple of years. And then, obviously, I didn't really understand anything about American sports, so I started getting into this draft thing, and I just started reading like the old classic Eagles message boards. And then all I just kept reading was the Eagles drafted this guy called Brandon Graham over Earl Thomas, and everyone hates him, and he's the least favorite person in the world. And I didn't really know what was going on, so I was like, oh, fair enough. Apparently, this Earl Thomas guy is pretty good. And I've never really watched the Eagles without Brandon Graham. Like, it was a bit like Jason Kelce in that sense, where the two of them just, to me, were like Philadelphia, and Fletcher Cox to an extent as well. But it's going to be weird watching a defense. I think there are two sides of it. There's like the side that I'm just so sad for Brandon Graham. I don't think he's been as good maybe like last year as he was, but I think this year he's been awesome. Like really, really good. Probably the best he's played in a long time. So I am really sad about it. There's injuries that hurt, and then there's injuries that like don't just hurt the team, they upset you on a personal level. And the BG one does genuinely upset me. He just seems like one of those guys, a bit like Kelsey, but unlike Kelsey, he's not in the spotlight. He's the opposite of Jason Kelsey in some ways, because you don't really see him anywhere near as much in the national media. He's sort of like the Eagles guy. Kelsey is like the national guy now. BG's like every Eagles fan's favorite player. So it sucks. And I think ignoring the fact that it sucks, it hurts the team, because he's a really, really good player. And I just hope that his energy, his the way he talks to the opposition, I hope he's still doing that. Like, I hope he's on the sideline giving it large, because the Eagles will miss him. But yeah, how do you feel about the whole thing? I know you picked BG as your favorite player in our shout out the Patreon mailbag. If you're not on Patreon, you would not have heard that mailbag, but you picked BG as your favorite current Eagle. So yeah, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's rough. It definitely puts a damper on what was a really impressive win. And, there's something about like, he's not the most impactful guy that the Eagles could have lost. In fact, he might not be like, I don't know, he might not be like a top 8 most impactful guy that they could have lost in terms of on the field play, but he's just an icon. He's been in Philadelphia his whole career. He's been there like the entire time I've been seriously following the team. And I think that he really came into the limelight when Amazon did their little series about the Eagles, and his personality kind of came alive for a lot of people. And I'm not sure that's something a lot of people clocked before. And, he's been highlighted a lot of times in mic'd up episodes now, and he's kind of a well-known trash talker and just epitome of a team guy. And you can even see that in his interactions in the locker room. Like, right, he just found out he tore his triceps, and he's done for the year and what was supposed to be his last year when you're trending towards a Super Bowl favorite. And all he talks about the entire time that he's being asked questions at his locker is the team. Like, he's the most selfless, like, great teammate. Like, he's the gold standard for a good teammate. And of course, he had like probably the best game he's played in 5 years right before he got injured too. And just a legendary performance. And it hits a little bit harder than normal because he is 36 years old. And so, maybe this is it for him, and maybe it's not. Maybe he comes back. He's certainly left that door open now, but it's definitely a tough one to swallow.
Yeah, I think he comes back, but then my brain tells me he's 36 years old. And like, we forget that like not everyone can keep playing at that level at 36, 37 years old. So my heart tells me he'll come back. My brain tells me we'll see. We've got quite a lot of comments about like the edge position, and I think we'll talk about it when we do the film stuff more on the defense. But yeah, he's playing at a seriously, seriously high level. There's something about Philly, the underdog thing, the mask when they won the Super Bowl, BG making that play. Like, I think I'm not from Philly, quite clearly, but it's shock horror. Anyone from the accent, I'm not from Philly. But I've always, one of the reasons why I fell in love with the Eagles was partly like I did a little bit of research much about the US and stuff. But ever since I've been an Eagles fan, I've always connected to like that underdog, that sort of hardworking sort of, I think the kind of person that Eagles fans like. And when I went to Philly, I connected with the city in that way as well. And BG just seems to epitomize what Philadelphia sports are about in a weird way. And it's strange for someone to say that who's not from Philly, but he is everything I imagine that a bunch of Eagles fans love. And I almost think the fact they didn't like him is almost even better. Like, I think that's even more perfect, that he wasn't the superstar coming out. He wasn't like the one that everyone wanted. They wanted someone else, and he had to actually prove himself to the fans. And the different mentality of someone like him compared to like a Jalen Reagor, for example, who clearly didn't handle that well at all, and wasn't humbled by the experience, is he's going to be a huge miss. Let's get into the film, or we could talk BG. We should have done a bonus BG episode, but we will talk about him again. I will
say, I'm not going to doubt him coming off a triceps injury. He'd be 37 next year, because I doubted him coming off an Achilles injury at 34.
Yeah.
And he recorded his first double-digit sack season, and the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. And coincidentally, his 2 highest sack total seasons, 2022, 11 sacks, the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, and 2017, 9.5 sacks, and the Eagles went to and won the Super Bowl, due in large part to a Brandon Graham sack. So I will not doubt him coming off of a triceps injury next year if that's what he wants to do. Hopefully it is what he wants to do. But there you go. Our thoughts on Brandon Graham before we get to him, because he was also our Patreon community's player spotlight. So I'm going to get to some film stuff on him a little bit later too. But Jonny, should we start on the defense there? Should we start on the offense? This is an important question because I think we've established a precedent that whichever side of the ball we start on, we're going to spend 45 minutes on, and then we'll fly through the other side. So,
good question. What do I want to talk about more this week? It's a bit of a weird game in both ways. I think I want to go defense. What about you? Do you disagree? Agree? All right, let's do it.
For me.
Yeah.
Why don't I just kick us off with Brandon Graham then?
Let's just do it, man. Let's just do it. Let's talk about what we saw this week. You start us off.
All right, let me throw it up on the screen here. Those of you listening on podcasting platforms or listening ad-free in our Patreon platform, you can go onto Twitter and the film threads are there. We'll call out play numbers and things, or you can watch it online as well. But Brandon Graham was incredible in this game. He played 29 total snaps. He had 2 stops. He had 4 pressures on 21 pass rush snaps. And I just pulled some of the plays out here. And so on this first one, he is on the right side of the screen here, and he's just going to blow by the offensive lineman for a run stop. And certainly wasn't the only time he did this in the game, but just right by the guard and wraps up Kyren Williams in the backfield. He was also like Matthew Stafford's going to have nightmares about Brandon Graham. He's over on the right edge of the screen again. And this play, he's going to hit Stafford as he throws. This is the one that they reviewed to see if it was a fumble, and it wasn't. But he's just blowing by guys. On this next one, here he is. He's on the right again. And I don't know what crosses your mind to think, hey, let's block Brandon Graham with the tight end. But it does not go well. He's going to just blow right by the tight end. And he doesn't end up making the tackle here. But anytime you've got a guy hands on him and you're making him spin in the backfield, there should be other guys there. And there are. This is probably my favorite rush. He's coming from the left side now of the screen, and they're going to leave him unblocked and then try to block him with a running back, which is also just a questionable decision at best. And Kyren Williams just totally whiffs. I like Kyren Williams. That's just funny. When you're a second year running back and a 36-year-old man makes you just whiff in space, that's pretty bad. Side note, it always annoys me this isn't flagged as intentional grounding. There's literally not a receiver in the screen. It's like there's just an unwritten rule. You can throw it through the back of the end zone with nobody in sight and it won't get flagged. It never does. But and then this last one, he's going to blow by the right tackle for a sack. And watching this from the back view, it makes my bones rattle. Watching Stafford take that hit and Graham just fully falls on him. So Brandon Graham played an incredible game. And this isn't just let's talk glowingly because he did get injured. At the time, I was like, man, Brandon Graham is on a heater today. And so the Eagles are certainly going to miss him, as we talked about before. I think this is the best game he's played since maybe the Super Bowl, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. By the way, shout out. We've got loads of comments coming in. We haven't thrown too many of them, but I promise you we do read them all. For once, there's actually loads at the start. Normally they build up. I can also tell we've got such a cool audience because they're talking about all 22 plays in the chat as well, which is when you've got good people listening. I'll throw it to my first point, Shane, because I'm going to link it to yours. So I want to speak about some of Vic Fangio's adjustments this week. And I think the best thing about having Fangio is the fact that he seems willing to adjust very quickly. And I think you saw it instantly on the first drive. The reason why I wanted to talk about it is because you spoke about how good Brandon Graham was as an individual. I want to speak a little bit about how much I think he's going to be missed schematically. And there was a couple of comments about what they're going to do with the edge position. So if you go, and you may have already showed, actually, no, you wouldn't have shown this play. If you go to literally the very, very first play on my film thread, Brandon Graham doesn't do anything on this particular play at all. So Brandon Graham doesn't actually do anything. You can see him there, but it's what he enables the Eagles to do. Now, I speak about this a lot, but basically the Eagles were getting run on the first drive, and Fangio adjusted basically instantly. I think they had 2 big runs, and I was sitting there thinking, I wonder if we're going to see a 5-man front. Now, since Cooper DeJean's come into the lineup, Fangio doesn't play base ever. Base doesn't exist. Basically, Cooper DeJean's out there every single play. 12 personnel, 21 personnel. He's good enough, basically. He's almost like an extra safety in many ways. So they just do not go to base, which means the only way you can essentially get to a 5-man front without taking a linebacker off the field, which they never do because you do not want to take Zach Bourne or Nacobe Dean off the field right now, is by playing Bourne at edge. It sounds very obvious. If you look on the screen now, it ends up being a 5-man front. The issue is that you can only do this if you have an edge defender that can then kick inside. Because if you look at where Brandon Graham's lined up here, he's almost like, he's not a true free tech, but he's lined up essentially hand in the dirt with an edge outside of him. So he's basically playing like a hybrid edge defensive tackle role there. Now, the interesting thing is, later on in the game, they did have one snap where Josh Sweat played this role, but only one. But I don't think Josh Sweat's big enough to kick inside. I definitely don't think Nolan Smith or Jalix Hunter fit are big enough to kick inside. Bryce Huff is absolutely not big enough to kick inside. So there's a good comment from Austin saying that Fangio spoke today and that Josh Sweat's snap count will stay the same. That doesn't surprise me. He said, and that's the one, it's the last bit, he said that he might slide over Milton a little bit. I think we're going to see a little bit of Milton Williams at edge because Milton Williams could play exactly where Brandon Graham is playing right now. The issue is it can't be a tell. And what I mean by that is if you line Milton Williams up at edge, you're going to occasionally have to play a 4-man front with Milton Williams lining up at edge because what Brandon Graham does is the beauty of it is he could be an edge, he could be a DT, and there is no way the offense will know. And what the Eagles do is they literally rotate Bourne at the very last second. So the Rams have already sorted out their blocking assignment. They know what they're doing. And then instantly, suddenly they're running on a 5-man front compared to a 4-man front. And that changes everything. That changes your blocking angles. That changes other things as well. So it's going to be really interesting. And I want to speak about this adjustment in particular as the main adjustment that I saw anyway. Fangio started going heavy 5-man fronts on early downs only. So that was sort of my point tying in with BG going out schematically is going to be a real issue. I think the answer may be Milton Williams, but I don't think there's an obvious answer. Like, I hate to say it because there are other ways of winning, but I just don't think the Eagles will be able to be as unpredictable in their fronts as they have been because I cannot see an obvious option. I think Josh Sweat, who, because he seems he did it once in the red zone this week, could be the answer there. But I also think other teams will start running a Josh Sweat if he's lined up inside. So it'll be a really interesting one because Rocco just commented this, and I put this in my article as well this week, not this published yet. But they're going to have to go 5-man fronts occasionally against the Ravens. Like, they will absolutely need an extra guy on the line of scrimmage. So we'll find out pretty quickly what they're going to do. The answer may be Milton Williams and just go really heavy because the odds are that actually some of their backup edge defenders aren't exactly creating loads of pressure anyway. But yeah, I thought Fangio's adjustments in this game were really good. In particular, there was that one. I also think week to week, Fangio calls a very different defense. I think this week we saw a lot more single high. I think they wanted a robber safety, that sort of free roaming safety in the middle of the field to try and poach a lot of what the Rams do. So I really enjoyed that. I think Fangio in general is showing that if the game plan looks like it's not working early on, he is not going to just sit on it and change it at halftime. He seems to be able to change it like drive to drive. Even in this game, that 5-man front was on like what, the 6th play of the game. I'm frantically scrolling up, but that first drive was like 7-yard pass, 4-yard run, 15-yard run, 27-yard run, and then it was 5-man front. So it seemed to me like it was almost like they were ready to do it instantly rather than just have those like first drives that end up being like a slow, painful death. So yeah, that's my first point. I'll tie it in with yours that was looking at Brandon Graham in particular, but also how Vic Fangio will use him and the fact that they've now lost a piece on defense. Yeah,
it's one of those things that Fangio just adjusts. Like the first 2 drives didn't go well, really. The Bengals never even got to a 3rd down. You force the fumble on first drive. They score a touchdown on the 2nd drive. And I just wasn't concerned because I have the utmost confidence that Vic Fangio is going to make the proper adjustments, and he did. So I agree with you on that.
Sorry, sure. Can I say one thing as well that I forgot to mention? Very scheme nerdy point. You want to talk about a really cool adjustment that I saw this week as well. Basically, every single time the Eagles play a team in a bunch or something, they tricks. And we've spoken about tricks in the previous podcast, the opposite safety. So imagine they've got 3 wide receivers on one side. We call that the strong side or the passing strength. Then to the opposite of the passing strength, that safety will keep an eye on the 3 wide receiver side. In this game, when the Rams lined up Puka Nacua on the weak side, essentially what they were trying to do was they were trying to create a one-on-one matchup for Puka Nacua. The Eagles didn't actually, you just made it much easier for me to explain. So what will normally happen if you're watching is essentially that deep safety will basically play a tricks role. In this game, he didn't. Now, I don't know if this particular play, because you've just thrown it up, he doesn't play the tricks role.
He does, but only after Nakua goes underneath.
Yes, there we go. So in this game, when Nakua was running like a deep in or a deep out, that safety wasn't playing as a tricks defender. That may be a very minor thing, but that shows that, like, if you're just running like a budget Fangio defense and you're not Vic Fangio himself, you read the rule book and it says play trickster a bunch. The good thing about Fangio is he wrote the rules. So I think he's more likely to be like, well, screw that. I don't want to do that this week. And it just shows you how he'll adjust ever so slightly each week. I'm not sure someone like Jonathan Gannon or Sean Desire would have made that adjustment. I get the feeling they would just run the coverage sort of as it's called. So yeah, I forgot to mention that. I wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, and it wasn't that they wouldn't do it, but they certainly didn't do it unless Nakua declared himself an underneath threat. So that's a good shout out as well. Let's go to a couple of comments, because we got a lot of comments flying in today, which is awesome. So run through a couple here. Austin says, "Go Birds." And then Krabby Oldman replied and told him that this week you can't just say "Go Birds." We've got to specify. So we've got some bird on bird crime happening this week. So we got to be real clear here. He also says he's been looking forward to the show. GGN says that you need to move to the States, Johnny, and you won't have these difficulties with the games. He also said it's one of the best BG games that he can remember. Eric, chiming in on YouTube, said that BG is a huge loss on many levels, but hopefully in the way Big V filled in for JP in 2017, that it's time for Jaylen Hunt to grow up fast. We got Rocco says, "Love your show. Look forward to it every week." And then T. Grant said, "Are we going to talk about Jaylen Carter being responsible for almost all our sacks and pressures the last 3 to 4 games?" Jaylen Carter is not one of my points, but Jaylen Carter is awesome. And the moment an NFL official realizes that it's okay to throw a penalty flag when he gets bear hugged to the ground, this Eagles defense is going to become that much scarier.
Shane, sorry to go back to back, but shall I just very, very quickly whack in my second point then, because it is linked to do with that as well, the defensive line. So I think the Eagles defensive line has been good of late, but I do have a slight concern where T. Grant is coming from. I think he's sort of correct that Jaylen Carter makes everything work. Like, Jaylen Carter is the linchpin of this pass rush. If he goes, we're in trouble. That pass rush, basically everyone else is getting one-on-one matchups because teams are not ever leaving Jaylen Carter one-on-one. The one that I noticed this week, and I tweeted this in play 2 of my film thread, Shane, I'm not going to hate on Jordan Davis. I think everyone at this point knows what Jordan Davis is. What I would absolutely love Jordan Davis to do is to be able to win when he's this one-on-one. So if you watch the way the Rams play this particular play, like, Jordan Davis, he has such a good matchup. The edge is wide. Jaylen Carter is rushing to his left. That is as one-on-one as you will ever get. And there's just nothing. Like, he just can't do it. And I think the Eagles desperately need one of their defensive tackles. Like, I like a Jomo, but he's not going to command double teams ever as a pass rusher. It's not his strength. Again, we go back to why Brandon Graham lines up inside a lot, because he can win that one-on-one. That play there, I just need Jordan Davis to do ever so slightly more, because basically Jaylen Carter is taking so much attention. A couple of other ones I wanted to mention.
Real quick, you literally you cannot ask for more space to rush a passer from the interior than what you get on this.
Yeah, that is the best look you will ever get. And the thing is, Jordan Davis is good against the run, so I don't mind him being out there in early downs, but he needs to do better.
If you give Jaylen Carter that space one-on-one, Matthew Stafford might die.
Yes, it would. He would get through very quickly. Really good comment from T. Grant. T. Grant, you might as well do the show because you've stolen my next point. So he speaks about how Fangio spoke today about, because they slide to Carter every time, he can dial up Dean, which is exactly what they do. Clip 8 of my film thread, Shane, is what we call whip. Whip is where the weak side linebacker blitzes and the edge defender on the strong side drops into coverage. So Josh Sweat actually ends up dropping into coverage on this particular play. And if you look at Jaylen Carter, and then you look at where Nacobe Dean comes from, it's essentially an easy win, because you know that protection will slide to Carter, and then you're going to get Dean on a running back. And Nacobe Dean is awesome at blitzing. In fact, to be honest, I think you're going to talk about him separately, so I won't do too much.
Actually,
on Dean
I scratched that one,
fantastic.
so you can talk about him some more.
All right, Wicked. Did you? Oh, I covered the wrong one into the chat. Yeah, he was fantastic in this game, Nacobe Dean. Then the final one I want to show is one of Milton Williams' sacks. And again, I'm not hating on the Eagles defensive lineman here. I'm just saying that Carter is the reason why it's happening. It's number 11 on my film thread. This is possibly the best one-arm club move I've ever seen because Jaylen Carter defeats 2 men with it. It actually looks like he's not being double-teamed, but he is. He beats the double team so quickly. It makes it look like he's not being double teamed, and you see it better from this angle here. Like the center and right guard are definitely going after Carter, and Carter's club move is so good. He ends up storming through, and then Milton Williams does get the sack. The difference here was where Jordan Carter making up players, where Jordan Davis couldn't win earlier on. Milton Williams does take advantage. So I wanted to talk about the defensive line being good. Like I thought Williams was really, really good in this game. He obviously ended up with 2 sacks. But Jaylen Carter is the story. So T Grant's comment helped me there because he is the story. And I've said it for Shane. We've been saying this since last year. I said he was going to be defensive player of the year talent. The talent was so obvious. The sack numbers aren't there yet. But if the Eagles could get an absolute, another good pass rusher opposite him in the next defensive tackle position on early downs, and they don't have to double him every play, you are going to see him blow up with sack numbers because that move is a joke. Other people are getting the sack numbers, but Jaylen Carter absolutely deserves a hefty amount of credit.
He fell very awkwardly at the end of this play.
Don't even say it. We don't. I saw it and I was like, fast forward. I'm watching it live. I'm not watching it live. I can find out if he's injured.
I'm pretty sure that's the last play that he played in the game. So nothing was ever said about it, but I hope he doesn't pop up on the injury report this week, is all I'm saying. I've been anxiously awaiting that this week. So anything else you wanted to mention on the defensive line before I get into my second point?
No, except for the fact the Eagles did claim Charles Harris. If Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it actually did work, I would be able to find all of my old tweets about Charles Harris. Currently, I cannot. I'm desperately trying to look at them. I will just say I really, really liked him coming out. Really liked him. I had lots of arguments with people online about why he's better than Derek Barnett. So it's fun to relive them. But I do think he could play at least a little bit of a role on the defensive line. But I will not go into him because I've not watched him. So I'll leave you with your second point.
All right. Austin did chime in and say that Carter was a full participant in practice today. He was skimming Twitter. So there we go. That's good. I was a little concerned about that, but I hadn't seen yet. So I'll get into my second point. There's 2 things that the Rams like to do in their pass game. The first, I'm going to talk about both of them, but the first one is play action pass with, I call them slide routes. I don't know if that's technically what they're called, but where you run the play fake one way and you've got a receiver scraping underneath the formation. I don't know. Is there a better name for that, Johnny? I've always called it like a slide route, but I don't know if that's what it's actually called.
I guess I would just call it like split flow motion, but I guess that's not really the actual route you'd run. So as always, I don't care about NFL terminology, so call it whatever the hell you want. People listening know exactly what you mean, and that's what matters.
Okay, we're going to call it a slide route. So the Rams are going to run this play fake to the left, and you get Cooper Kupp on this slide route underneath. And this is tricky because, the Rams run this a lot. You've got to have a plan for it. And in this particular one, Cooper DeJean is in man coverage. This is hard because Cooper DeJean is in the run fit on the left side, but the man he's covering in man-to-man coverage is sprinting towards the right sideline. And you don't know if he's like split zone blocking, if he's going out on, if he is split zone blocking and you follow him, you've vacated your hole and the run defense is in trouble. And if you chase him and it's a run play, there's just so many ways this can go wrong. And that's why the Eagles did not play a lot of man coverage in this game. The Rams are a hard team to play man coverage against, but this rep is man coverage. And Cooper DeJean does chase the route, and he does a pretty good job of getting through traffic. And, it's still 4 yards. It's pretty easy 4-yard completion, but it really limits the damage. Now, they're going to run something similar. This time, DeJean is going to be in zone coverage, and he's just going to bite on this run fake too hard. The run looks like it's away from him. He gets 2 downhill, collisions Cooper Kupp, and he's just not there in the flat. And that one turns into a big gain for Puka Nacua. Now, hypothetically speaking, zone should be a lot better than man coverage against this. And this third rep is why. We're going to be back in man coverage here and just watch the traffic that Cooper DeJean has to navigate through while everybody else is potentially playing the run, right? It's play action. And he's going to end up bumping into guys, and Puka Nacua gets wide open again. So you see right here, we're making contact with Reed Blankenship, and, it's a 9-yard gain. So this is really difficult to defend. One of the things I thought the Eagles did to defend it well was they played a lot more zone coverage than probably is typical. And the other thing they did is Nolan Smith on this play. Just watch Nolan Smith. I think this is so good. He sees this run going away from him, right? And he's the cutback guy. You're not probably going to make a play on this, but he sees, I think it's Puka Nacua again. Maybe it's Cooper Kupp. I can't remember. He sees one of these receivers scraping across on this slide route, and he just runs into him. Makes contact, boom, knocks him off his route, chases Stafford, but that gives more time. It disrupts that route, and it ends up going for 0 gain. And so zone coverage is a way that you can do this, but I really liked what Nolan Smith did here, making contact with that defender. It's behind the line of scrimmage. It's a legal play. And I thought that was something that was interesting, just to watch how the Eagles adapted to that throughout the game, because this isn't something the Eagles do. Like, they do it a little bit with like that RPO where you flip it out to Goddard. It's different. And so you can be prepared for it, but when you see it live in action by one of the teams that does it the best in the league, sometimes you got to make some adjustments on the fly. And I thought that was something the Eagles, it took them a little while to get there, but it's something they ended up finding a solid answer for.
Yeah, and that's the McVay speciality. Like, McVay's really good. I didn't come away from this game thinking that the Rams were bad. I thought the Eagles defended them really, really well. I think you mentioned about Nolan Smith being really aggressive at the line of scrimmage. I think Cooper DeJean is also outstanding at that. He's really, really good at taking away like crossing routes and slider routes by basically just pressing the hell out of them at the line of scrimmage. I think it's been a huge change since he's come into the lineup, and they've been able to do that. I am obviously, Shane, not with it today because I realised that my third point was actually going to be looking at Nacobe Dean after mentioning him earlier on, and then saying that he was your point. And what I meant to say was he was my point, so I didn't want to speak about him too much. I'll keep this short and sweet. I think this was Nacobe Dean's best game as a pro. I think I said the same thing about 2 weeks ago, which is probably a very good sign. I think him and Zach, basically, Nacobe Dean has always been a great blitzer, and now he's getting a chance to blitz more. He's always, I think, been a good run defender coming downhill, but his problem has been in zone coverage, and I think he is really, really getting it now. I think he is not outstanding on it, and I don't think he's someone you want to put in like man coverage and a tight end or anything, but that's why Fangio's defense is great for it. How many times do you end up with linebackers that are in man coverage with tight ends and stuff? And if you do, it's basically going to be Zach Bourne anyway. So it's such a great fit for Dean. I've already showed him blitzing on whip, which is his sort of trademark. So I'll just show one play, which is probably my favorite. Like, when you want to talk about like the Luke Kuechly's, like the old classic sideline to sideline linebacker, there's a play in everyone's mind that is the linebacker in the middle of the field, sprinting as fast as he can out to the edge of the defense and making a tackle for loss. And Nacobe Dean did it. Play 6 on my film thread, showing if you don't mind. This is like the old school classic linebacker sideline to sideline play. You know, when like you're scouting linebackers before the draft and you see this, you just tick that box. Like, this is it. This is exactly what you want to see. The athleticism, the burst, the ability to read this and avoid the guards and the tackle, like that is perfect. And then the way he tackles as well is really good. Like, I joke, but when you're watching, if I'm watching someone pre-draft and I see that play, I just instantly like circle their name. Like, that's what I want to see. And I think it's really, really good for the Eagles moving forward, because I don't know what happened with Bourne. Dean didn't look like a great player his first few starts, and he looks really good at the moment. It's not just Zach Bourne that's playing well. I think a lot of comments have gone to Bourne. I think it's time to basically give Nacobe Dean a little bit of love, because he's playing really well, and I do genuinely think this was his best game of the season.
Yeah, it's a nice run rep too by Jalix Hunt to continue to string that one out to the side. Quinyon Mitchell fills down as a force defender. Like, I remember noting this play when I was watching it, just talking about how many things like your run defense is a team effort, because I mean, Nacobe Dean goes from one hash to making a tackle on the opposite numbers, which is an incredible play. And if he doesn't make that, Reed Blankenship's still right there to clean this up. Like, just such good defense. Also, I think it's funny, like, Nacobe Dean just kind of takes out Quinyon Mitchell's feet as he's fallen off this tackle here. But incredible team run defense there, and it's a great play.
Shane, we spoke about this last week a little bit. If you just pause it right at the end of the play, literally right at the end from this angle, actually the other angle is probably better, Shane, the other angle, the first one. And you put a circle around how many Eagles defenders are close to the ball. What is it? 8 again? Like the fact that they're that close, that's what we talk about good team defense. It takes every single person rallying to the ball. I actually spoke about this in my defensive article this week about how good all of the defensive backs are against the run. I think Quinyon Mitchell was trying really, really hard against the run. I think Isaiah Rodgers had a huge forced fumble. CJ Gardner-Johnson has definitely been better. Blankenship's always good against the run. And Cooper DeJean is a star against the run. And that was always one of the biggest reasons why I liked him in the slot. So, going back to my original point, shout out to Nacobe Dean.
All right. Well, my last point on the offense is the other thing the McVay offense is known for is their crossing routes. And so you have to have a plan to defend crossing routes. And what the Eagles chose to do, I said they played a lot of zone coverage. There was not a lot of man coverage in this game. There was also not a lot of quarters coverage or quarter, half coverage. It was a lot of cover 3. And when you played man coverage, a lot of cover 1. And a lot of time when you do that, typically if you're going to rotate a safety down, a lot of times in cover 3, you'll have one safety take the high hole and you'll have one safety come down to the opposite flat. And then you have your 2 linebackers over the middle. That's not how the Eagles did it a lot of the times in this game. Instead, they would have a linebacker go out to the flat and they would have a safety step down into the hole. When you do that, I mean, your safety is a better cover guy than your linebacker. And I think they were doing that specifically for these crossing routes. And so over the course of the game, they were in a middle field close coverage on about 75% of their snaps. And a lot of the times it was a safety in that hook or robber role so he could pick up crossers. The Eagles' first drive, 4 out of 5 snaps were middle field close coverages. The second drive, it was 8 out of 10. The third drive, all 3 were middle of field close coverages. And Fangio is known for his split field safety coverages. And so this was an adjustment that they made, and it worked pretty well. And I'm just going to show 2 plays here. One of them, there's a lot of things we could talk about in this play. Like you can talk about how great a job Darius Slay does covering this crosser from outside leverage. You get the motion in. He's out leveraged here, and he's able to navigate traffic and make a play on the ball. Like that's certainly very impressive. That's not why I showed this play though, because you see Reed Blankenship steps down into this hole and he's going to key this crossing route. He's going to key this crossing route coming over from Cooper DeJean, and he actually passes it off with him. He's going to take this guy and run to the sideline, and Cooper DeJean falls off over the middle of the field. Like that's such good communication. They're picking up these crossers. This next play I'm going to show, now they don't throw a crosser. This is when Cooper DeJean locks up Cooper Kupp on 3rd and 4 on the out route. But you can still see the same structure because you'll see Chauncey Gardner-Johnson step down into the hole and he's looking for these crossing routes. So at the snap, he's down and he's sitting inside. We're looking for Cooper Kupp to break to the inside on a crossing route, and it doesn't happen. But the Eagles were paying a lot of attention to those slide routes. They were also paying a lot of attention to the crossing routes, and they did a really good job. Like Puka Nacua gave them a lot of fits. Like he had a really good game. And yet the Rams only put up 290 yards of offense, and it's the 3rd lowest yardage total of the year for them, behind the Raiders game when they put up 259 and they were missing both Nacua and Kupp, and then the Cardinals game when they put up 245 and they were missing Nacua. And so playing with both of those wide receivers, the Eagles defense did a phenomenal job. And it was frustrating at times to see how the passing game was working for them. But at the end of the day, they've got 2 elite receivers and an elite quarterback, and they're going to get theirs. It just didn't result in nearly enough points.
I am so glad you showed that Reed Blankenship play because I think it's absolutely awesome. Like Reed Blankenship, should we say, is really, really good. That's what McVay does, like the crossing routes. That's what he's very, very, very good. That's basically half of his offense is scheming up those plays. And I thought Fangio dealt with them extremely well. it's interesting as well because a lot of Fangio's quarter stuff was to take away a lot of those crossing routes. And I think the Eagles did a really, really good job doing it from single high this week, which is quite difficult. That first play you showed as well, that rep by Darius Slay is really good, like top good. They will have some success. No one's perfect. The Rams will always put up numbers. But they didn't get killed by them. We had a couple of comments about Dean shutting down Cooper Kupp, and basically, yeah, he did. Like, Kupp was quiet because Dean was awesome. I think Kupp's very physical at the line of scrimmage. I think he's not really a great separator if he doesn't win early on. And I think Dean basically just pressed the hell out of him in the first 5 yards, and Kupp didn't really have an answer. That was something that really stood out to me as well, how they stopped the crossing routes. And I think when you think back to sort of some of the early part of the season, I spoke about Fangio adjusting earlier on. They were getting killed by crossing routes from their cover three earlier on. They were getting absolutely rinsed week after week by crossing routes from their single high coverage. So much so that I was like, I'm done with cover three forever. Think that's the Packers game. I know it was the first game of the season, but they could not cover a crossing route to save their life. Even going back a few weeks ago, they weren't doing it very well. And all of a sudden, they're playing cover three or cover nine, if you want to be pedantic about it. And they're covering crossing routes. Like, that's a huge change. I think it just shows you that Fangio seems to be able to coach his team on the fly. When something's not going very well, he seems to be able to essentially figure it out very quickly. I think even like Tristan McCollum playing this week over Sidney Brown was a sign. He spoke about that and said it's just because he's been here longer. Like, he wants players that have played a lot because communication, route distribution is massive. So when you compare to what the Eagles were doing earlier on, I think I did a whole point on how the Eagles just flat out could not cover crossing routes from their single high zone coverage look. And now all of a sudden, they are able to do it with ease against probably one of the best offenses in the league that run crossing routes all the time. So, yeah, it's a really, really good sign for the defense and for Fangio in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything else you want to fire off about the defense before we move over to the offense?
No, I think I am good. I will just say there's a couple of comments and T Grant saying about consider starting Ringo. Yeah, I think Rodgers got beat a couple of times, but I also think he got beat by like Nakua in like advantageous situations. I think he played all right. I'd like to see Ringo too, but I think Rodgers had a good game. I think he got beat, as I said a few times, but quarterbacks get beat. He's a backup corner coming in against a very good Rams offense. I wouldn't be like desperate to get him out of the lineup or anything.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get over to the offensive side of the ball. I'll lead us off here with perhaps the stupidest point that's ever been made on this show. But guys, I don't know if you know this. It takes a lot of years of analyzing All-22 and understanding football at a high level to be able to bring you this point. So, if you're driving, maybe you want to pull over so you can write this down so you don't forget. But my first point is that Saquon Barkley is really good. Like, Saquon Barkley is so good, but specifically, I want to just talk about his vision. Like, there's a couple of plays that his vision, his ability to like decelerate, cut, and be back to full speed, like instantly at his size is just freakish. Like, this is why he was drafted so highly. On this first play, I'm going to show 3 plays of his. The first one, Cam Jurgens is going to combo block with Mekhi Becton, and then he's working up to the second level to the linebacker. And I don't know if you want to say he's late getting to the second level or that the linebacker just fires downhill really quickly. It probably depends on if you're an Eagles film guy or a Rams film guy. But regardless, he's not able to get this linebacker. So you can see he's by him, right? And Saquon Barkley's just here, and Saquon just sticks his foot in the ground, jump cuts to the right. And then, I mean, it's not a huge gain, but that's just such an impressive cut from a running back. On the second one, we're going to get a safety coming downhill. And so just watch the safety coming downhill and watch this cut that Saquon makes. This is just stupid. Like, he cuts to the right and then goes all the way outside the right tackle and stays on his feet. And you can tell you're feeling it when you high step, like right at the sideline when it has no chance to actually make somebody miss. Saquon was feeling it, but just the vision to get through all of that. And then I think my favorite one is the 70-yard touchdown run to open the second half. And he just follows Landon Dickerson right through that hole. Boom, one little cut. And that cut's so impressive to be from nearly full speed to that little cut sideways and you make the safety miss. Just right there. Whoop, we're gone. Saquon Barkley's incredible. I know that there's been some debate maybe sparked by certain former QBs that don't need to be named about how any running back with the Eagles offensive line is a cheat code, as if we haven't watched Miles Sanders go to Carolina and have an immense drop off, as if we haven't watched DeAndre Swift go to Chicago and have an immense drop off, as if we haven't watched Saquon Barkley come to Philadelphia and just like have a big jump in production. Like, the offensive line is part of it for sure, but Saquon Barkley's vision is so good. A lot of the yards before contact, this is not saying the offensive line doesn't block those up really well, but other running backs would be contacted quicker than Saquon is because of the way he presses the hole. So really impressive game from Saquon Barkley. And it's not just because of the yardage total. And some of these runs just kind of make your jaw hit the floor.
Shane, can you show the one again? Was it the first long one? Where he does the cut, the acceleration for those watching. Like, I can't explain this move here. Like, that acceleration is like legitimately out of this world. Like, I remember watching that play and just being like, am I seeing things? He cuts and gets faster. Like, he gets faster after the cut. Like, I saw Kempsky tweet this as well, talking about how like maybe we need to don't worry about giving him so many carries because he just looked so explosive. Like, I sort of feel like sometimes you can say outlandish things on podcasts and you can regret them. And like, I've watched the Sean McCoy and I know how good Shady was. I know how good Westbrook was, but I don't think I've ever seen a back like Saquon Barkley. Like, I can't lie. Like, the guy is playing at a level that I don't think I've seen a back like it in years. Like, he is so explosive. And I think it's so interesting that teams are trying to stack the box. And it's the worst thing you can do, actually, because if you stack the box and there's like a gap, the safety just can't be right. Like, he's making everyone look stupid. He's on a team with Jaylen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and he looks more explosive than any of them significantly. It's almost absurd how good he is right now. It's sort of ridiculous.
Yeah, I was just about to mention this, and donation came in from T Grant. Really appreciate that, man, here in the YouTube comments. So thank you for supporting the show. He said that Saquon was so good they had 10 in the box on the TD at the end. The 72-yarder, 10 guys in the box, and he's just gone.
Yeah, T Grant, lots of amazing comments. I haven't seen your name in the Discord. Get in the Patreon, my man. And he obviously knows his stuff. Talk about us in the Discord. It's where we do most of our talking. But yeah, massively appreciate it. It is ridiculous. Like, I said this in the article that I've just published, and I'm not joking. I think if I was a defense right now, I would actually play negative against the Eagles. I'd basically try and give up like 6 yards a carry and just be like, just run it 50 times. Like, do 6-5-6, 6-5-6. Do you know what? I would try and just get that one occasional stop. Because if you really, really, really try and stack the box, like, I genuinely think it's risky. Because what the Eagles have shown as well was that if you stop them on 1st and 10, they're going to run it on 2nd 10 anyway. Like, they really don't seem to care. I didn't want to talk about Saquon this week because I knew you would, and because like the whole world does. I just think it's really basic analysis, as you said, just to point out he's really good. But he's not like really good. He's exceptional. Like, he's completely, like, I think conversations comparing him to like Derrick Henry and stuff are nonsense. Like, I think Derrick Henry's really, really good. I think Saquon is significantly more explosive this year. I sort of can't say enough good things. Just can't say enough good things. Right. Can I talk a little bit about the offensive line? Because you spoke about Saquon, obviously, and I don't really know how to talk about the Eagles' offensive line, Shane. Because
can I show the first clip real quick?
Yeah, do it.
People were commenting on this clip earlier that I had posted here in the chat and laughing about it, but just watch Mekhi Becton on this. It is a bad day when you're a linebacker and Mekhi Becton is running at you full speed. So some of the guys were laughing in the chat about this one while we were talking defense, and I wanted to make sure we threw it up. But anyways, go ahead.
But this is the problem with the Eagles' offensive line is we don't talk about them enough because every single one of them is good. Like, I could show like Landon Dickerson in this game was unbelievable, like so dominant against the run. Jurgens and Becton had some ridiculous snaps. Lane Johnson and Mailata do things when they're pulling and in space. Like, this is a very, very nerdy point. When you talk about the run game, you always talk about angles. Everyone talks about angles. Like, everyone loves talking about offensive line angles. And I feel like no one who actually watches film really knows what they say. What they mean, they just say it because it sounds cool. Like, the angles are good. But I think basically what the general point of that is that you make an easy rushing lane for a running back, because the angles that you're blocking at end up essentially creating these huge holes that you almost can't ignore. Like, the offensive line is so in sync. That's what's crazy. Individually, they're unbelievable, but as a unit, they're so good. You don't see like one guard and center take a different angle to each other. You don't see like one guard blocking the outside shoulder and the center blocking the inside shoulder, so they end up like taking the same gap. It's so consistent and it's so in sync. Like, Stoutland is an absolute guru. I've got a couple of plays that I wanted to show as well. I don't know how many of these you've shown when you already looked at Barkley, so we'll just look very quickly at the offensive line. There was play 4 in particular that I wanted to highlight. And I said, and guys in the chat, I need nicknames. I said we need a nickname for the Cam Jurgens, Mekhi Becton combo block. And we got like some, I can't remember that, Bacon and Jergy. I was getting lots of random tweets about this kind of idea. But like, they are so in sync with their combination blocks at the moment. And I mentioned them because Dickerson does a lot of stuff by himself. So you spot those two. But that block was awesome. The way they climbed to the second level so quickly. I mean, Becton on display. Like, look at Mekhi Becton. I know you've already tweeted it, but it's out of this world. Becton wasn't the only one. There was others that I really, really liked. I'll show a couple more, seeing as I know you've already done a few of running, but play 5 as well on my film thread. I really, really liked. This is another one of Barkley's plays that you've shown, but the block Becton makes here is really, really, really good again. Like, and the thing about the Eagles offensive line, Shane, we talk about this every week, but they don't run like inside, outside zone. They run everything. In this game, they ran trap again. They ran outside zone, inside zone. They ran a ton of counter. It just feels like anything they want to do from any formation, like 12 personnel, 11 personnel, under center, pistol, shotgun, they know how to do it all. Like, they know how to run everything. And I'll show one final example because we don't even really talk about him. Jordan Mailata.
I was going to say it better be the Jordan Mailata clip.
Is it going to be the Kenny? Were you going to do the Kenny Gainwell one?
Yeah, if you didn't show it, I was going to.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just watch Mailata on this play. Like, they're running trap. I think it's Johnson who's trapping here, essentially. Look at this block he has to make. He is at left tackle, and he has to get to the off-ball linebacker, and he has to block him from an inside, like, out position. Like, he has to get to his inside shoulder. That block is so difficult. So difficult. Like, Jurgens and Becton do really well again. And the thing that I like about this play is that, I said about angles and what we mean by that, like creating gaps. Jordan Mailata knows this play is meant to hit a certain gap, and he knows that he has to block the inside shoulder. Loads and loads and loads of people can basically look at this on a film room and go, right, I want you to make that block. But seeing it and then athletically being able to do it is what makes players special. And you could genuinely shout out every single lineman in this game for a ridiculous block. And really quickly, because I was going to mention this as well, but Rocco beat me to it and commented it. It's absolutely nuts that we have Tyler Steen and Fred Johnson on the bench, who I think would genuinely start on our rosters. Like, it's crazy how good the offensive line is. I don't think there's anything freaky about or fluky about the Eagles run game. I think they're going to run it well every single game. And yes, it won't always be perfect, but I think a lot of the time they're going to be a really, really run-first offense, and I'm so glad they've made that decision. And by the way, I don't think it's a knock. Some people online say it's a knock on Jaylen Hurts. It's not a knock on Jaylen Hurts. They are run-first because they're incredibly good, not because the quarterback or the passing game or the receivers are a real issue. It's because that is their biggest strength.
Yeah, for sure. And that block that Jordan Mailata makes, like, if you're an offensive line coach and you put that on the chalkboard in your offensive line meeting room, like 75% of the starting tackles in the NFL would laugh at you and say, that's not possible. Like, I can't do that. Nobody can do that. And then like 20% of them would be like, I think I can do that. And they can't do that. And then you've got Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, who both could pull off blocks like that. It's kind of crazy. Austin's saying here that one of the beat writers said the Eagles don't care what the opposing defense does because they're confident that the O-line can move anyone in the run. And yeah, it's confidence that is well-founded for sure.
Yeah, right. That's our offensive line. But we haven't done the offensive line for a while. So Austin commented saying he liked bacon and jerky. Bacon jerky seems to be a good one. So maybe we'll have to go with that. I want something because their combination blocks are so good. God, whose point was that, Shane? I was chatting about offensive line for a while. That was me, wasn't it?
That was you.
Do you want to take your second point then? Do you want to talk about where you going, AJ Brown?
I'll do AJ Brown. Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
This is another one of those that you just have to have a lot of football knowledge to be able to say, hey, guys, AJ Brown's a good football player. But he almost gets a lot like he has the most casual, low key, nobody's talking about it, 6 catch for 109 yards in a touchdown game ever. Like 100 yards is a big deal in a game. And he just casually does it. Like Jaylen Hurts only had 70 passing yards that weren't to AJ Brown in this game. And he's just used so many different ways. And so I just wanted to show a few of those. This first play, they're going to run this over route to AJ Brown. And I don't know if this was designed to be a bootleg from the start or if Hurts just sees it and rolls out because the edge rusher drops.
That's my concept. I'm pretty sure this is a deliberate rollout. Yeah, I'll talk about it more on mine. The more I watch it, the more I'm convinced. And I'll tell you why when I break it down. But yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do think it is a design rollout because you wouldn't leave your tight end one-on-one with an edge rusher, probably.
That's
for
the one.
Regular blocking. But Hurts just gets out of the pocket, and I mean, he rifles that into AJ Brown on the run, throwing off platform. He's on the move. You love to see that. Then they work the play action game again. This time they get him on a play action and they run a drag route and they get him lined up with a linebacker. And like normally as a drag route, you need to get this ball out sooner because the further he goes, the more room there is for it to be undercut. But he's running against a linebacker. And so Hurts can hold this and just let him create more separation, puts it on him, and he breaks the tackle because, of course, he breaks the tackle and gets a first down. Then you get him at the bottom of the screen running a curl route against single high coverage, 6 yards off. You're toast because you got to turn the hips to run, and Brown breaks off that route, breaks 3 tackles, spinning. Big gain. I mean, he's such a yards after the catch monster. Then you get him running crash for the touchdown, which again is kind of this rounded like corner route against man coverage. It's a great concept, target AJ Brown in the red zone, something that maybe should have happened earlier in the game, but he breaks this off and Hurts puts it right on him. I will say, I don't think that was actually a catch. I kind of thought they ruled that one incorrectly off of the review, but it stands. You get the touchdown there, and then, you want to blitz the Eagles and try to throw them off. Well, you can do that, but now you can just motion AJ Brown out to the perimeter and he's one-on-one, and AJ Brown wins the slant route, breaks a tackle, breaks the second tackle, almost breaks the third tackle. He's just such a nightmare to cover, and he makes the Eagles passing game so lethal because, again, if you want to stack the box, you're giving these one-on-one situations. And I think it was Chris Collinsworth on the broadcast said that there's some receivers that are hard to cover and there's some receivers that are hard to tackle, and AJ Brown is both of them. So he leads the NFL right now in yards per route run at 3.35. He has 0 drops on the year. He is 3rd in yards after catch over expectation. He is 2nd in wins above replacement behind Jamar Chase, despite having 44 fewer targets. He's 2nd in EPA per target, 1st in yards per target, 1st in drop rate. There's only 6 wide receivers that haven't dropped a pass this year. And then he's 3rd in broken tackle plus missed tackle forced rate at 28.2%. So AJ Brown is having an incredible year, and he's missed several games, but he's still up at the top of these leaderboards, and he just makes things so much easier for the Eagles on offense.
I'm glad you are getting rightly roasted in the live comments. That was absolutely a catch. What were you watching? How was that not a catch? Based on, I understand why it could not be a catch based on, let's say, real life, but based on the NFL rules, that's absolutely a catch. You can disagree with the rules, but that's a catch.
I think
rightly cooked in the comments.
I think if that happened, not in the end zone, because if that's a catch, then that means it would have also been a fumble if the play doesn't stop immediately because it's a touchdown. If that happens in the open field and it's a fumble and the Rams recover it, all of Eagles Nation would be furious about it being ruled a catch.
Because that's what fans do. It was definitely a catch. It was definitely a catch. Yeah, what was great about that play you showed at the end as well was Jaylen Hurts over the middle of the field. We didn't even get to Jaylen Hurts in the middle of the field as a point today. I'm now starting to regret it and feeling like I should have. And frantically looking at my points and wondering if I can change one of them on the fly, which I might do. I might talk about Hurts in the middle of the field instead of my red zone point, because I think my red zone point you might cover with your point that seems to just say like Jaylen Hurts making bad plays good, which I read it as to say that some of the Eagles passing concepts in this game were crap, basically. Right, let's talk about the second point, which I'm going to talk about the actual concepts of the week this week. So, like you, I went back and forth about what this play was. It's an awesome play, by the way. So, first play of the game, the Eagles, or not first play of the game, but first play of my film thread, the Eagles come out and they run like a post-cross combo. So, very, very common play. Basically, every NFL team runs this multiple times. They run A.J. Brown on like a cross. They run their slot receiver on like a post. And then I believe Johnny Wilson just runs like a go away and stretch the defense. You're never getting this ball type of route. Is that Johnny Wilson? I can't see underneath the
I think it was
comments. Yeah, basically it's the big like go away. This ball's not going to you anyway. But have a nice little run down the field. What the Eagles do on this post cross combo though is do something they barely ever do, which is called dash. And dash is basically like a rollout or a sprint out without play action, and it's a bit unusual. And at the first time I watched it, I was like, the Eagles never do this. So is this deliberate? And then the more I watched it, I was like, well, this is absolutely deliberate. And you mentioned it earlier on. The reason why I know it's deliberate is because the tight end is basically blocking the edge if he doesn't drop out. And the way the tight end is, the angle of the tight end just tells you that he is basically deliberately rolling out. I don't know if you've got the back view of this play as well, Shane. I do on my film, Fred. If you do not, it's the first play. But when you watch the back view, you can absolutely see that Jaylen Hurts is rolling out. Like you can see it very clearly. This is not just a case of hitting his back foot and going. I'll wait for the video to play, but you can see it very, very, very
I don't
clearly.
think you have the back view.
Oh, I don't have the back view either. Brilliant. I literally watched that before the.
I have it. Give me a second.
There we go. I knew I watched it somewhere because this was the view that the second I watched this, I was like, this is definitely.
Yeah. I posted it on my full film stuff, but I cut off the back views when I was doing those points. So
this is the one. So this is where you can see that he takes this and runs. Like this is deliberate. So the second he takes his drop, he hits his back foot and then he goes. And that to me is like there's no way he's reading that quick enough. And it's also, by the way, an absolute dime. And I think just in general, the reason why I like this as a concept is because I think one thing I will credit Kellen Moore with, although you might criticize him a little bit in a second, is that the Eagles do lots of different things every week that I'm like, that's new. Oh, that's new. That's cool. They have their staples, which are the run game, but they do like one or two things every week. I'm like, they haven't done that before. And I think game planning for this offense must be an absolute nightmare. Everyone said for years that the Eagles should get Jaylen Hurts on the move more. And I think we all just assumed, or a lot of people assumed, well, that has to be under center, outside zone play action, because that's what Kellen Moore's always done. And actually, although the Eagles are using under center more, although they're using pistol more, that's still not the biggest part of their offense. So seeing dash was really cool because it basically gives you a chance to get Jaylen Hurts on the move. It gives you a chance to roll Jaylen Hurts out to his right. And Jaylen Hurts is really, really good when throwing on the move. So essentially, like, I really like that concept. I think it's a concept that we can build on as well. I think you can do other things with it. Here's a bold statement for all of you out there that want to watch something. Keep an eye over the next 5 weeks at a trick play where the Eagles have like Ina Smith or someone else at Johnny Wilson's position, and they've run the exact same play, but Jaylen Hurts like tosses it back on a wide receiver reverse coming the other direction. Like there's a few cool things you can do when your quarterback's on the move, and we know Kellen Moore loves a totally random trick play. So keep an eye out for that one. So yeah, I think I'll talk about for my set. Well, I will. That is my concept of the week, which is dash. And at the start, I wasn't sure it was a deliberate rollout. But now I am pretty much convinced, like 99.99% convinced, that is definitely a deliberate rollout.
All right. So there you go. Our new concept of the week. Got to like this comment from Austin. You can't get skittish in the pocket if you're out of the pocket.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to talk about, for my last point, I'm going to talk about Jaylen Hurts making some bad plays good. And on a couple of them, I think he shows a lot of poise in the pocket, more poise than I think maybe is warranted on some. So on this first play, this is just going to be a spacing concept that the Eagles run. I hate crap like this, but that's beside the point. You'll get the motion across.
Sorry. You don't like the Eagles quick game at the moment. You haven't said in the Discord or online or tweeted or anything.
The Eagles' quick game is horrendous. I hate it.
Debatable. I could fight with you a little bit. I think some of it's average. I wonder how much of it is just setting up stuff later on in the game, to be honest with you. And maybe we have to just accept that some of them are negative. But there you go.
Yeah. But on this one, first of all, I just want to point out Saquon Barkley does an incredible job coming across and picking up this slot defender on the blitz. Now, if I'm a quarterback and I know I've got a running back sprinting across the formation to tag a guy rushing off of the edge, I'm going to be speeding up my internal clock. And if you look at Jaylen Hurts, he sees it. He's looking that direction. His first instinct is not to run. His first instinct is to look to the other side of the field, taking his vision away from where his running back is blocking. That's maybe more trust than I would give to a running back in that situation, but I love that Hurts does this because we've talked for a lot about Hurts' natural tendency to run, and I love that here his natural reaction was, I've got time to get to the other side. And there's nothing there because it's stupid. Let's all run curls and stand by defenders. But then Hurts is forced to run and he makes the guy miss and he dumps it off to Saquon Barkley. And they get, I mean, it's not a big play. It's 5 or 6 yards, but it could have been a really bad play. And so you can see, watch from the back view or the front view, whichever way you want to call it. But again, he opens up to one side, pivots to the other side, and then feels the pressure and gets away. He doesn't create the pressure. He waits till there is pressure, and then he gets on the move. And I thought he did a good job with that. On this next one, Jahan Dotson just gets like destroyed off the line of scrimmage. I don't know what this was. I don't know what this concept was going to be. I also went viral on Twitter because I tweeted this clip and I said it's a good thing Jaylen Hurts can scramble because this is just awful. And everybody was like, oh, he's calling Jaylen Hurts awful. And I was like, no, I literally said it's a good thing he can scramble because this is awful. But I guess I should have been more precise with my wording. But regardless, Jahan Dotson ends up on the ground. And now this is where Hurts is looking. And this is the routes that we're working with. So there's nothing there. And again, this is dead, but he's sliding. And again, I love that he slides from this pressure. He's still looking. Now nothing's there. Go scramble and get the first down. This is 3rd and 3. It extends that you're losing this game 7-3, and you're probably punting if Hurts panics here. Hurts stays calm. He makes something out of nothing. And that's what's so important. That's such an asset to have as your quarterback. If Matthew Stafford is your quarterback, this play is probably just dead in the water. Now, he did have a 15-yard scramble in this game. By the way, that 15-yard scramble by Matthew Stafford brings his total rushing yards for the year up to 8. So it's nice to have a guy that can do that. The last one I want to show, there's just nothing open here. We can watch this. Hurts hits the top of his drop, looking at the top of the screen. We're covered. He's still looking at it. Nothing is open. Nobody is open. And then he buys time and he gets out of the pocket and he finds Saquon Barkley at the sideline, who catches it with the knee down. And from the back view, again, I love his response there. His first response when nothing is open and he starts to feel pressure is just to slide. He just slides to the left, right? We're sliding. We're still looking. We slid left. We're looking right. Nothing's there. Now we get out of the pocket, but we're still looking downfield while we're scrambling. I think Hurts has gotten a lot better with his pocket awareness. He's never going to be like an elite pocket awareness guy, but I do think he's getting more comfortable in the pocket for longer periods of time. I do think he's looking to throw when he scrambles out of pockets where he didn't used to do that. And he's making good decisions. Since the bye week, he's only got 3 turnover-worthy plays. He's not putting the ball in harm's way. He's 7th in EPA per drop back against the blitz. And so if you can't blitz him, one, how do you get pressure against the Eagles offensive line if you can't blitz? And if you have perfect coverage, he's content a lot of times to hang in there, work for scramble drill, work for scrambles. I've been impressed with Jaylen Hurts' growth this year. Even though the passing game hasn't been as good as I had hoped, Jaylen Hurts still is a massive addition to this offense.
Yeah, Hurts has been good. He's been good for a while now, basically. Since the bye, I think he's been good. I think people would have point about things that he misses. He misses the occasional throw. He sits in the pocket occasionally too long, but he's been fine. Like, he's been very good for the majority of the time. Some of our comments are getting too good because I'm reading them thinking, now it looks like I'm stealing your point, but I'm just going to mention it. So I will mention John Dotson isn't very good. I'm sad. I don't want to take a defeat already because I liked him. I liked him pre-draft. I liked him with Washington. I don't know what's going on, but the guy can't get off the line of scrimmage. Like, he can't get off, and it's a real problem.
There was one play where he really needed to get off the line of scrimmage instead of lining up across it. But
a couple of weeks ago, I thought he was fine. I thought he was running quite well. But they're just not featuring him. Like, I'll be honest, the Eagles receivers in general, big stock down. I'm concerned for this team to have a legitimate Super Bowl chance, which I think they do, but I think they might need AJ Brown and Devontae Smith both to be healthy because the backups aren't doing a lot. The other quote I wanted to mention was from Austin Hoffman. So I'll mention this as my final point a little bit, where he talks about the quick game off the blitz has been really good. Yeah, the Eagles are so good when opposition blitzes. It's sort of absurd how good they are. Jaylen Hurts is so and he knows exactly where he's going on the ball. The team know exactly. It's almost like they've worked on the blitz so much, Shane. I wonder if they've neglected other parts of the offense at times because I get the feeling like half the off-season prep was like, how the hell do we beat the blitz? And I'm half joking, but I'm also half not joking. I think this team has spent a significant amount of time on what to do when the opposition blitzes. And I guess you have a finite amount of time. So eventually that does mean that you're going to cut into other areas of your offense. So I think at some point, some of their designs are pretty basic. I want to give Jaylen Hurts some flowers for the middle of the field. I'm sick of narratives and I'm sick of media and people online talking about narratives that I don't know if they are true. Jaylen Hurts hates motion. Not true. Jaylen Hurts can't throw to the middle of the field. Not true. And Jaylen Hurts can't play under center. Not true. Like, before we start saying things about what guys can and can't do, there's a difference between what you can and can't do and essentially what you prefer. And I'm not doubting that that's true. Am I suddenly going to say Jaylen Hurts is the best guy for the middle of the field at all? Obviously not. I do not think he ever will be. I don't think that's his game. He's a slightly smaller quarterback who excels outside the numbers. Fine. But he had two throws that I loved in this game in the middle of the field. He had more than two in this game, but there were two that I really liked. One of them you've already shown, so you can bring up the same play again, Shane, if you've got it up, if you don't mind. It was just the one where they brought pressure, and it's just Jaylen Hurts being really good, in rhythm, in sync, hits his back foot, ball comes out on time, middle of the field, accuracy's good, ball placement's good. It's just a really, really nice play. Sorry, I put you on the pressure there because you probably had my thread up, and I've told you to go back to yours. The second the Rams bring 5, look how quickly Hurts knows what he's doing here. And AJ Brown is a monster in the middle of the field. I think it's very fair to say he only excels in the middle of the field when he's throwing to AJ Brown. I would agree with you, and I'd also raise it maybe because everyone else sucks except Dallas Goedert in the middle of the field, and obviously Devontae Smith when he's healthy as well. This is just such a nice play, but the best one, I'm going to ask for, Shane, because I went mad in the Discord when I saw this one. The best one was play, which I'm now trying to desperately find on my film thread. This is why talking and prepping at the same time is always fun. It was play 9. Play 9. Here we go. I absolutely love this play because when you talk about quarterbacks, you often talk about you want your eyes and your feet to be in sync. And what I mean is that you can tell where someone's throwing it because they're all in sync. I don't think Jaylen Hurts is in sync here. I think his feet are lined up like he's throwing further to the outside. But I think he's done it deliberately because he spotted that he needs to squeeze this in, and he's moving the linebacker. If you watch the way he throws that from that behind angle, that's all arm strength. There's no body movement. This is Aaron Rodgers style. This is a flick of the wrist. He's not actually lining up where he's supposed to throw it. And you could criticize it. The QB mechanic guys out there may do, but I think he's doing it deliberately because he's trying to move the linebacker. The best thing about this play, Shane, is it's under center play action with motion throwing to the middle of the field. Is there a better play to end the podcast on than Jaylen Hurts throwing to the middle of the field, moving a linebacker with his eyes on an under center throw with motion? Everything Jaylen Hurts can't do, he did in a single play. So I think it's a really cool play because it just it gets rid of every narrative out there. And it's also just a really good throw. This is the kind of stuff we wanted to see from Hurts. And yeah, we've been seeing it of late. So let's finish the podcast on a positive Jaylen Hurts note and show a play that proves a lot of people out there wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to show you. I've got the back view. It's so weird that you get different views than I do sometimes, but here's the back view of this play. If that adds anything to it, again, you can see the same things, but you can sort of see it from Hurts's perspective. And he's able to, like you said, I mean, just look where he's lined up. Like when he's lined up to throw, it's kind of what you were talking about. But if you look at where he's lined up to throw this ball.
Yeah, he's making that linebacker move right. This is a high level play. This is not like bait. When people talk about the Eagles offense being really simplistic and everything, blah, blah, blah. This is like a proper QB play. This is good. I know it's a low throw, by the way, and I will say that. I will say part of the reason why it's a low throw is because he's not set and he doesn't have a naturally unbelievable arm like a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes. He does need to be set. So it is a low throw. But you know what? It's still on target. It's still catchable. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jaylen Hurts can't throw middle of the field. Jaylen Hurts doesn't like play action. Jaylen Hurts doesn't like under center. Combining it all into one play to kill a narrative. I love it.
Good fun. Good fun.
All right. Well, I think that's going to about wrap it up. Jonny, do you have any final thoughts or things you want to put out there before we get out of here?
No, you're going to say the same as always. Chat was absolutely buzzing today, which is awesome. Yeah, that's half the reason why we like doing them live. Why we're glad that we get our own sort of network these days so we can go live all the time. Yeah, chat's cool. Best way of contacting us, I use Twitter less and less and less, except to post. I know we say it every week, but get in the Patreon. It's good fun. It's only $3 a month, and we do reply basically every day in the Discord. But appreciate you all listening.
All right. That is going to about do it. Do appreciate all of you guys in the chat, all of you in the Patreon, everybody that's downloading anywhere. Thankful for you guys. I hope you guys all have a great Thanksgiving tomorrow. If you celebrate, Jonny. But hope everybody else has a great Thanksgiving. And we will be back next week breaking down what is hopefully an Eagles 8th consecutive victory. I'm so excited for the Ravens game. Maybe, dare I say, a potential Super Bowl preview, but it's going to be a great test for this defense. Certainly going to be a lot of fun to watch. So you guys have a great rest of your week. Safe travels if you're traveling, and we'll catch up with you guys next week.